Welcome to Life, Love, and Jesus as we're continuing our journey through God's Word this year. Today we will be finishing the book of Ecclesiastes, and this is just a reminder if you want that one-page overview for every book of the Bible as they come out this year, as we go through each book. Sign up, make sure you're on my email list. The link for that is in the show notes. And with that, let's just dive into this content and try to keep this video under 10 minutes like I didn't yesterday. And so, starting up in chapter 7, before we start talking about the content of each of the chapters, I just want to remind us that Solomon's basic theme here is that everything we do in this life is kind of useless, purposeless, futile. He uses the phrase, it's all vanity. It's all vanity because it means nothing, because it doesn't last. Only eternity lasts. And he has been the richest, wisest man, powerful man in his world at the time. He was more wealthy than we can imagine, and he had other kings coming to listen to him and under his dominion, and he had everything his heart could desire. And at the end he says it's all meaningless. Yeah, it's all meaningless. And now we get to the part of the book where he's coming back to kind of what do we do now that we know it's all meaningless, now that we know all of life is vanity. What do we do? And so we're going to pick up there with chapter 7 and see what it is we should do in light of the fact that this life is but a breath. It's a vapor. It goes away fast, and everything we do passes when we pass. Chapter 7, the basic theme of this chapter is that wisdom and folly are contrasted with each other, and we need to be living with eternity in view, and that means living in wisdom, living with eternity in view. Verse 1 says, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of birth. And part of the reason he says that is because as you go through life, you learn more and more how very fleeting this life is, and how very futile or vanity filled this life is, and how eternity is what the focus should be. And then in chapter 8, Solomon tells us that, yes, this life is futile, but we have an advantage, and that advantage is knowing the Lord, because he alone is wise, and he alone can give us the wisdom we need to live a life that is not full of vanity, that is not futile and ridiculous, and really comes to an end when we breathe our last breath. And then chapter 9 is just a reminder that death will come to everyone. In the middle of that chapter, it says to enjoy your life, basically, in verses 7 through 10. Enjoy, eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry heart. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, in verse 9. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with your might, in verse 10. So it's just a reminder that death is coming for all, but while you're here, find joy in the life that you have and living wisely in that life. And then in chapter 10, it is a reminder, Solomon continues reminding us how very important it is, in the light of the fact that all of this will disappear so much faster than we can imagine, for us to live with wisdom, because wisdom will guide us to live with a focus on eternity, a focus on things that truly last and endure. And then in chapter 11, it has that strange phrase, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. And the point of this is that we need to be bold enough to take some risks and seek the rewards that come with those risks, because life is fleeting. You've got to take the chance when you have it. So in the margin of my Bible for chapter 11, I've written for verses 1 and 2, take some risks. This is just advice basically for generally living wisely. Verses 3 and 4, there will never be a perfect time for anything. Verse 5, be humble. Verse 6, work hard. And verse 7 through 10, again, just like in chapter 9, be joyful in life. Find joy in the life that you have, instead of always waiting, wishing, wanting for more. And then the book of Ecclesiastes ends with chapter 12, which is the culmination of the wisdom that Solomon has gained through his life of beginning with faithfully following the Lord, and then throughout most of his life, just instead of following the Lord, following his every heart's desire, doing whatever he wanted, building buildings and gardens and palaces, and taking lots of wives and having lots of horses, and doing everything he wanted to do. And at the end, he says this: remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. And he continues on from there. But the summary of that is learn to trust God early in life before life's hardships make you hardened and bitter. If you start out young, when we're still young and idealistic in this world and don't realize how very hard life can be, start out then trusting the Lord and begin seeing his faithfulness in our lives. When life does begin to get hard, then we will have a much better life on this earth, much more joy-filled, purpose-filled life on this earth, but we will also have eternity. And that is the very, very key to all of life. And then chapter 12, at the very end, verse 13 says, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Whole duty of man. Fear God and keep his commandments. That's living in the light of eternity. So after our content, we always go through our questions. What do I learn about the Lord? What do I learn about myself? And what do I need to obey, change, or do because of what I've learned in God's word today? And I want to read to you my answer for question number 1. What do I learn about God? God knows people in general. Of course, he created us, so of course he does. Individuals specifically, and all about the hardness of life. He knows it all. There's nothing secret about humanity, how we tick, about our individual lives, about the hardness of life in general for everybody, and specifically how hard it is for individuals around the globe. He knows all of that. And he wants to help us by giving us wisdom and providing salvation, because he knows, as in ways that we cannot even begin to understand, especially when we're young. He knows how very short this life is and how very long eternity is. I've heard it phrased that, we're living in the dash. If you see an obituary or a tombstone, a gravestone, headstone, it starts with the birth date and the death date. We live in that dash. And that dash, even on that headstone, that dash is very, very small. It's very, very short. And we cannot even begin to comprehend how short our dash, our life is, in light of how long eternity is. We cannot conceptualize how long eternity is. So Solomon is ending by saying, this is what you were meant to do. Live in light of eternity. Fear God and keep his commandments. It's the whole duty of man. And when we live in the light of eternity, then we know when we enter eternity, we have life everlasting, the rest of eternity in the presence of the Lord, a life filled with purpose and passion and love and grace and all the good things our hearts ache for in this world. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you will be back here again tomorrow after we finish this book of Ecclesiastes in these last 2 days. We go on to learn more about God's Word. Please like and subscribe and share this video with your friends and your family as we all learn to live lives based on eternity, focused on eternity, fearing God and keeping his commandments. Have a wonderful day living for the Lord.